Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, Films and Stuff, welcome back. How are you?
I am great, Ethan. How are you?
I am buzzing. I am bouncing. I am so excited for this episode because we're talking about, it's basically a menage a trois. We're talking about House of the Dragon and Rings of Power.
All right.
How can we not be excited about that, right?
It's definitely interesting.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm feeling some passive aggressive comments by you, yeah?
Between the two of the shows that we've been watching simultaneously, and we are on equal footing because Lord of the Rings released 2 episodes at the same time.
Yes.
So we are episode for episode
3 and 3
in the swing of things. 3 and 3. I have to say I am getting, and in terms of lore and in terms of, genre, I would say 9 out of 10 times I would be much more inclined and interested in Lord of the Rings over Game of Thrones.
Oh.
I've got to say, in terms of the TV show, though, I am way more interested in House of the Dragon than I am in Rings of Power.
I agree with you. I'm enjoying House of the Dragon more than Rings of Power. However, there's
way more.
There's a few things that I have noticed because it's impossible not to compare these two to each other. I would say that House of the Dragon, this episode, did something interesting, which is it basically fast forwarded 3 years, right? This is the first time jump we've seen, and I think another major one is coming. And that was interesting. And I have to say, House of the Dragon is also pretty self-contained in terms of right now we're seeing what's going on in the Red Keep, right? And we're seeing what's going on in what they call the step zones, right? Those are kind of like the 2 different locations. Everything else is not really introduced yet. And I have to say, in that sense, we haven't really seen a whole lot of character introductions in this episode 3. Whereas in Rings of Power, we're all over the place. We got, the new islands this year. What are they called? Numenor? Right? Numenor. So we got introduced now to Numenor. We've got a lot going on with the Harfoots, right? And this stranger. And now we've completely lost anything about the Midlands. Middle Earth is not touched upon at all, I guess, in this episode. So I'd say Rings of Power is spreading itself a little bit broader and introducing more and more things, whereas House of the Dragon was pretty static this last episode. So does that impact?
I think it's been keeping things a little tight.
Yeah.
And before I continue, I just want to do one of our very rarely done Films and Stuff retractions.
Oh, really?
A couple episodes ago, I made a proclamation that House of the Dragon was not based on any book or any lore existing, that it was all new, all original narrative fiction.
Mea culpa. Yeah.
Yeah, mea culpa. What I didn't realize and what I didn't know is because I've discounted almost all Game of Thrones books since George R. Martin hasn't released the last one, is that this show is actually based on a book called Fire and Blood.
Not Fire and Ice.
Don't know anything about it.
Fire and Blood.
Haven't read it. So that's my caveat. That's my mea culpa. I want to take that back in case there are listeners who are going to excoriate me for that.
Not me.
But in any case,
let's do House of the Dragon first.
Yeah, please. I'm far more interested.
Tell me what you think. I mean, if we look at Daemon and Corlys, the sea snake, right? They've got this battle against the crab feeder. How did you feel about this? Was it exciting, anticlimactic, too fast?
A little anticlimactic and all of the above, actually. So what I'm not liking is that a lot of the things that we're seeing in terms of the battles for a show that spent $200 million making it, cool stuff is happening off screen. I'm not such a huge fan of the fact that, so let's talk in reverse, right?
Yeah.
So that last scene where we see Damon go out on his own, pretend to surrender, and then in the last second pull out his sword and his dagger and start kicking ass all over the place, right? And you see him run, and you see him get shot in the torso or the shoulder with an arrow. Like, he looks like he's down and out. And then all of a sudden you see a white dragon come in with Corlys's older son or younger son, Larion? I can't remember the name precisely. Come in with their army and kind of take everyone out. And then not fast forward, but effectively fast forward a minute or two, and then you just see Damon walk out of a tunnel, carrying like half the body of that.
Yeah, the crab feeder.
In Game of Thrones, and I understand this is not Game of Thrones, but how can you not compare it to Game of Thrones? This is a prequel based on that show. They would not have hesitated to show you that fight scene. They would not have hesitated, even if it was a quick one. Here, that guy who was someone I thought would be maybe not the primary antagonist for the whole season, but an antagonist for the season, he gets felled off screen. We don't get to see any of that. And
You're unsatisfied. You're unsatisfied.
I felt very unsatisfied because the battles themselves are nowhere near as epic or as grand or as, visceral as they were in Game of Thrones. And I would have hoped that they would have kept that aspect of it, which is, Game of Thrones did not shy away from gore, from blood, from battle sequences. I mean, we saw Rickon Stark get stabbed in the throat with an arrow, right?
Yeah.
Or in the chest, in the back. I mean, we've seen some gruesome, gory deaths, and we've seen some excellent fight sequences. We saw Lady Stark get her throat slit, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So why would you keep something like this, which would be really an important element, at least of this episode, maybe not for the whole show? Why would you do that off screen?
I'm half with you. I mean, my sense of what happened on the Stepstone Islands is that there was a 3-year drawn out battle to essentially a standstill. And we understand that Daemon and Valerian are kind of losing. And then what made me think back to season 8 of Game of Thrones is that suddenly they throw all that out the window, and in essentially 5 or 8 minutes, they win the war. And I have a problem with that I thought that went way too fast. I get the idea that Daemon is not going to accept the king's assistance. I thought that was very appropriate. But I always have a problem. This guy's walking, he's surrendering, and it's like the crab feeder just had a bunch of stormtroopers. Like, they can't hit the guy. What are they waiting for? Like, you've known this guy, you fought against him for 3 years. Do you really?
Hundreds of archers.
Do you honestly believe that this is not a trick or a trap and he's really going to? That's not his style. I mean, it just seems like I would take that guy out right away. It seemed to just smell like a trap right away, right? I mean, there's no way that guy really surrenders. Impossible. And the crab feeder, who's gained his, to the extent that he's got power, has gained it by being cunning and probably extraordinarily careful, right? He's held out for 3 years. He's avoided dragons for 3 years. He hasn't been killed or captured for 3 years. And now he's just going to fall for this trap where his ego is so big that he says, oh, I bet the crown prince or the former crown prince is just going to surrender. No big deal, right? I didn't like that at all. So
I'm with you.
And I was really hoping that the crab feeder, who I thought was a pretty good bad guy, that he'd stick around longer and this would be a long-running theme. Maybe he didn't win the war, but he was still kind of like a thorn in the side of the crown.
And I'm also a bit maybe puzzled But I don't understand if Valerian is now fighting this war on his own with Daemon and his one troop of gold cloaks.
Yeah.
Is that him seceding from the King's Council or from, that thing? Why isn't he in communication with the king? Why isn't Viserys fully aware of what's going on? Why does Viserys have to learn about this through spies and through letters? Like in the first 2 episodes, we saw he was a part of the council. Yeah. He's married to this sister-in-law or cousin or whatever it is. Like what it just, something didn't smell right about that. Yeah. Something seems a bit weird that so quickly, and I understand that there is a 3-year time jump, but Game of Thrones was one thing, for all its faults, Game of Thrones was very good about showing you the political machinations and for the political steps. Yeah. And you understood where everyone was and why they were there. It doesn't seem very logical to me that because the king refuses to marry this guy's 13-year-old daughter, that he would all of a sudden abandon the monarch.
I agree.
Right?
Is he getting...
it doesn't make sense to me.
You're absolutely
because
right.
There was no slight other than... No, there was a slight in the fact that he rejected his daughter as a wedding partner, but that wasn't, on its own, was not enough to justify leaving that council.
I agree.
And potentially creating an enemy against the crown.
You're absolutely right. I think it would have made much more sense if he would have kind of lent his son to lead that effort, and he'd kind of be playing both sides, right? Saying, hey, I'm still loyal to the king. I mean, that family, the Valerian family, did not become wealthy and powerful by just mindlessly flipping sides, right? Especially if the war is being lost after 3 years. It seems like he would have remained on the king's council. He would have sent his son to help Daemon, and he'd kind of have one foot in
and maybe he'd be like, a secret war is being waged by my son and the king's brother. Yeah. And we will not acknowledge that. But on paper, I'm with King Viserys. Yes. I don't agree with his decisions, but I'm with him.
Way more intelligent.
And then this becomes more like him being a little bit like Littlefinger and a little bit like Tyrion, which is to say, hey, okay, I'm going to use my brains. How do I then raid the king's coffers to fund my secret war?
Correct.
How do I plot to have the king's men who are on like a training exercise accidentally become a part of this war and drag the monarchy into the war, rather than I have to save my F up of a brother from this 3-year battle that he's been waging, so I'm going to send 2,000 men.
Yeah, I agree. I think the whole thing kind of played out too fast. But a bigger takeaway I had is that I feel like we're getting a lot of messages about the dragons, right? The dragons in Game of Thrones were always, as you mentioned, kind of off screen, and we always kind of wanted more. Where here the dragons are so prominent, and now we've got, it seems like 2 dragons, Daemon and the Valerian son.
So on that side, and I thought they only had 1. So where did the second white one come from? And how is the non-Targaryen able to ride it? And not just ride it, but ride it very adeptly.
I guess because the wife of Corlys Valerian is...
That's true. Is also a Targaryen.
Yes, is a Targaryen.
So he's half.
So I guess the son got one. I kind of thought that the wife of Corlys had one. Daemon has one. And Rhaenyra has one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
3?
That's the other thing is that so what is the dragon situation is another good question. Yeah. Because something, and this is maybe, explained in the books properly or not, I don't know. But something to me doesn't sit right about the fact that a non-pureblood Targaryen is able to ride that dragon. I really think that what you're doing with this is now diluting the value of dragons. Yeah. And 2, what is the stable looking like, right? Because my understanding was that there were 2 dragons in play. Rhaenyra's dragon and Daemon's dragon, and then he had stolen an egg, which he returned back to her.
Yep.
Remember, there was that one scene where we saw a bunch of
Yep.
dragon eggs in King's Landing, right?
Yep.
Or wherever they are now.
One of those
at the
eggs should
keep.
be Aegon's egg now, right?
Yep. Yes, that's right. So my question is now, are we setting ourselves up now for like a dragon on dragon war at the end of the season? And if that's the case, I think I think that's a mistake. I think dragons should be like on a chessboard, should be like the queen, which is an all-powerful unit, but very unique and limited to one per side. If they're going to start using dragons like pawns on a chessboard, you're kind of devaluing the power of the dragons. They can't be flying over everyone. You can't have so many of them around.
I mean, we know that there's going to be a dragon-to-dragon fight, though, right? I mean,
there has to be.
It seems inevitable because that also seems like how the House of Targaryen felt, right? Their power is only linked to the dragons, and the only way that they can lose this power is obviously someone's going to destroy all the other dragons and the eggs, and there's only going to be one left.
Or the three left that Daenerys ends up with.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how many seasons the show's going to run, but as we talked about a couple weeks ago, we know where this show has to end on a grand scheme. We don't know on a micro level, but on a macro level, we know that the Targaryen family has to be more or less destroyed, that the Valyrian family has to be more or less destroyed, all the dragons have to be killed, 3 eggs have to survive, and everything else becomes a question.
Okay, so that's the stepping stones. Now we're back in King's Landing or wherever they were for this, this hunting trip, right?
Godswood or Kingswood, yeah, whatever it was. Yes.
What do you think of how everything has kind of progressed in 3 years' time? It's a little bit boring. I mean, it was very
a little mundane. I'm liking Viserys less and less.
Really?
Yeah, because he was just this drunk guy who can't command situation. He's the bloody king. He made a proclamation to the public that Rhaenyra is going to be my heir.
He's very melancholy. Yeah, he is very melancholy.
Very melancholy, and he's not standing up for anything. And I think one of the things that I've made clear is, look, I don't like people who are wishy-washy in any show. Yeah. This has nothing to do with this show. Yeah. It's just a common thematic thing. I don't like characters who are wishy-washy. You made a public declaration. Privately, you keep comforting Rhaenyra and telling her that you are going to be the heir. You need to get married so that you can solidify your claim to the throne and so that nobody can question that further. I'm sorry, but you're the king. If Hightower keeps talking to you about this kind of nonsense, kick his ass out. Kill him. Do something. What is it? What you're doing is he's allowing people to lay the seeds of doubt in his mind. And that's, for a king, nonsense.
I have to say, you're right about Viserys. I have to say the same thing about Rhaenyra. She really annoyed me in this episode. In episode 2, and even episode 1, she came off as so mature and having her shit together. In this episode, she came off as a spoiled, bratty teenager who is just almost intentionally being rude to her father and defying everything. Kind of why? I mean, it's been 3 years. Yes, her father married her friend. Not the end of the world, right? Her father had a son. Not the end of the world, right? Is she going to maintain the right to the queen, or is it going to go to her brother? I agree, it's a stressful time. But the way that she was acting, in my opinion, was not acting like the queen in waiting, right? She was really acting like a kid, and I wanted to see her acting stronger like we saw in episode 1 and episode 2. I thought she took a big step back in likability and maturity in episode 3.
Yeah, I can't help but feel like they're setting it up so that when Viserys dies, which I expect to happen sooner rather than later, given what happened in episode 3, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a 3-way battle for the for the throne. You're going to have Daemon on one side.
Rhaenyra.
You're going to have Rhaenyra on one side. So you're going to have Daemon, who's going to claim it based on age. You're going to have Rhaenyra claiming it based on the fact that she was the rightful heir nominated by the previous king. And then you're going to have Aegon / Hightower, right? Who's going to claim it on the basis that he's the last living son, or he's the oldest living son of the king. So you're going to have this 3-way battle. And I think that they're setting it up in such a way that that battle is going to be what makes her grow up in some sense. Yeah. And here's the question that I'm going to throw to you. I have a theory. Where do you think Daemon falls in on this line?
I mean, are you saying by the general hierarchy of a monarchy? I mean,
in terms of this story, all three of them believe they have a claim to the throne. Some are more legitimate than others. I think we can both agree that, especially with Aegon being born, Daemon no longer has really any legitimate cause to be on the throne.
I think Daemon has the strongest claim in terms of his maturity and his power to command a kingdom. Right?
Right.
I think if you're saying, look, this is 7, right? They talk about 7 different kingdoms. Everyone's got their own designs for power. Daemon, although he may not be a great guy, although we haven't really seen that he's a bad guy, he may have a very heavy hand. He's probably the most qualified person to keep everybody together. I think it'd be a little bit of a...
and with an iron fist,
it would be a little bit of a brutal regime, but he could at least keep everything together. Rhaenyra, which I'm finally pronouncing correctly, thank you, is probably she probably has the strongest claim simply because she's a direct offspring of her father, the king, and the original queen. And she is actually of a good age. Daemon at this time, I mean, back then, I mean, people didn't live to be like 90. People probably lived to be like 50 or 60, right? He's probably on the back half of his life. Rhaenyra is probably of a more appropriate age that she'd be able to, properly rule for a long period of time. Aegon is probably on the young side. I mean, he's not able to manage it all.
Because you know what would happen, right? Hightower will say, I will run as the king. I will take over as the king's...
I'll be the hand. He'll be the hand.
I'll be the king's hand. Yeah. Exactly. The same thing that happened with Joffrey and his grandfather.
Correct.
Here's what I want to throw out. Tell me what you think, okay? I think that a 3-way race is untenable. And so what I think is going to happen is that you're going to have a situation where Hightower, whatever his name is, he's going to make a claim. And because he's the king's hand now, and because he's also got like the most, let's say, political savvy of the 3 of them, he's got the most political savvy and the most political, let's say, connections, I would say, because of how long he's been the king's hand and how long he's been, his generally even-keeled nature.
Yeah.
I think he's going to make a play for it. And I think that's going to force Rhaenyra and Daemon to strike an alliance where I think they will say, Rhaenyra, I will become the new queen. I will head up the Targaryen family. You become my hand. I will rule with grace and humility as a queen, and you will be my iron fist.
You do the dirty work.
And I think that's something that would kind of work for Daemon because of the Targaryen family, Daemon actually likes Rhaenyra the most. We saw that in episode 1. 2, at the end of episode 2, where you see Corlys talk smack about Viserys to Daemon when he's striking the deal, Daemon turns around and says, watch your tongue. That's my brother. So I think there's still a hint of loyalty to the Targaryen family. And I think he will see Hightower as not being loyal to the Targaryen family, even though Aegon himself may be Targaryen blood. Effectively, Hightower will become the king.
Do you think there's a scenario where Viserys, who obviously has like some major health issues, and I really admire this show for making it so subtle, right? Like here we see him.
Oh my God, the fingers.
He lost absolutely 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Right? And his hair is much, much thinner than we've seen.
We saw one finger in episode 2 with the maggots. And then all of a sudden when he's at that hunting camp, you only see him with 3 fingers left.
What if he goes into like some type of
madness or psychosis?
Yeah, I want to say like almost like a coma, like something where he's there, but they need to dispose of him. And it's Alicent who really becomes now the ruling queen. I feel like Alicent would put down her father and put down her
father.
Yeah.
In favor of who, though?
I mean, just so that she can, I feel like her father would try to like manipulate the situation, say, oh, you've got to appoint your son and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like Alicent would keep that position for herself and take her father out if she needed to.
Yeah, she's definitely the dark horse. I don't know if she's taking her father out. In fact, if anything, I actually see herself almost like at this stage, she hasn't really done much to indicate one way or another. Yeah. But I almost see her as kind of like the mole that Hightower planted.
Yeah.
Like any good spy, we won't know her true nature until it's too late.
Yeah.
She's playing the Natalie Dormer role very well at the moment, right? Which is, and again, forgive me for making the parallels to Game of Thrones, but
you have to.
Naturally, that's where we're going to go. We have to. And so when we saw Natalie Dormer kind of worm her way into being Joffrey's betrothed, I think she's done a very similar job in that regard. Put in place by her father, whereas Natalie Dormer was put in place by her grandmother. Yep. And then she's kind of wormed her way in there. And I sneakingly suspect that she's doing it for her father's benefit. Again, I have no idea. You're right. At this moment, it's a 50-50 toss-up. You're erring on the side that she'll take her father out. I think she's working for her father. But at this stage, it's too early to tell.
What do you think of Rhaenyra and who she's going to marry, if anyone, ever?
I think it's going to be that squire, right? I don't think it's going
Sir
to be
Criston
any
Cole?
of the Lannisters. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be I think they're setting it up. Now, that doesn't mean anything because the old school Game of Thrones guys would have set it up and then killed him in the last episode. Right? Like that would have been the really old school Game of Thrones thing to do, which was to set up something and then kill him.
Yeah.
So I can
It's the misdirection. I agree. It's the misdirection where we think, oh, they've got this, beautiful relationship. There's some type of attraction. And then she goes and marries the Valerian son, right, to solidify her claim.
Or the Lannister, because when because the Lannisters are still claimed to be the wealthiest family in the country, right, or in this kingdom, or whatever you want to call it. So and she made that point to her father. She said that if you were going to marry for power and not for nothing else, you would have married the Valerian's daughter.
Lena.
Right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. And so that could be a good misdirect, which is to say, obviously the show is setting her up to marry the squire or get with the squire. And then at the last possible minute, he either dies or she spurns him to marry a Lannister. So then there's no question about that powerhouse because now not only will they have dragons, but they'll also have all the money in the world.
Oh, you know what? But this is where it gets so interesting, right? It's better that she marries someone, but she has like a bastard kid with Sir Criston Cole, right? Who you call the squire, right? It's better that if you're really trying to complicate things, okay, so she marries, the Valerian kid, and then she has, in the heat of passion, like before her wedding, she has, a kid with Criston Cole, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's again another question in terms of who has the rightful claim, because I mean, how many jumps are we going to see? I think the next episode we're going to have a jump. Do you know?
I don't know. Do you?
Let me check. Millie Alcock, 5 episodes. And there's only 10 episodes, and Emma D'Arcy, who plays the older Rhaenyra, is in 6. So that means there's 2 crossover episodes.
So there's probably at least 2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously I didn't look at it that way.
And the same thing when you look at Alicent Hightower, Olivia Cook is in 5, and Emily Carey, who we see now, is in 5. So they split equally 5 and 5.
So 1, maximum 2 more episodes where we see these guys, and then they're out.
Although potentially we could have like a flashback with Millie, right?
Yeah.
I'm sad to see her go. I really like
I say I was about to say, it's a shame that they're only doing that because this Millie Alcock is doing a very good job,
I agree.
actually. She has grown on me tremendously. I have to admit, after the first episode, I was a bit meh, but I have to say, I don't want to see her leave the screen.
It's got to be so traumatic for an actor, right? I mean, we've seen this on so many shows, but like, you're like, yeah, like I was the main person in season 1. And then you go to Comic-Con after year 4, after year 5, after year 6, right? And it's like, remember me? You loved me in season 1, right?
Yeah, but I look at it the other way around.
It's gotta be
There's
so traumatic.
many shows out on TV now, even if you're only in it for half a season. What a springboard this could be for other opportunities.
Yeah.
Look, I look at it this way. Would I rather be in a show for half a season like Game of Thrones or in 5 seasons of a show that nobody's going to be talking about ever again?
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I always have like this FOMO, like this fear of missing out, right? Where it's like,
of course.
You sit everybody up like Game of Thrones, right? Like it was Jon Snow, it was Emilia Clarke, Jason Momoa, right? Like, hey, remember me? I was like a very important guy in like season 1, and then.
But speaking of Jason Momoa, he parlayed that first season
Aquaman.
of Game of Thrones into the success he has now.
Aquaman.
Look at Tom Hopper. He was Dickon something in
what?
In Game of Thrones, and then he became Luther in Umbrella Academy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Good for him, right?
I didn't know that.
He was the kid that everyone made fun of because his name was Dickon or Rick, Dickon, whatever it was,
I didn't know
and
that.
everyone was like, "Oh, is that really your name?" And then he dies in that one episode or in 2 episodes later, and look where he is now.
Did not know that. Great memory, Pete. Okay, so that is House of the Dragon. Look, I love this show, I have to say. I feel like it could have slowed down the crab feeder scene. I really wish that they would have shown me something else, like House of Stark, House of Baratheon. Show me more about, any of the other kind of houses, but
The wider world, yeah.
Yeah, but here we are. I think episode 4 is really important, but so far I'm pretty happy with it.
Remember, I was a mooch at the end of episode 1, and I said, I wonder how it's going to go. I'm at a must subscribe.
Yeah, I'm a must subscribe.
I have to say, I'm after 2 episodes in, after 3 episodes in, I am now fully vested. I'm in. I can only hope it continues to stay that way by the end of the season, but I'm pretty sure it will because I think HBO also understood there was a lot of flack for the second half of season 8. So I'm sure they'll have taken extra care for season 1 of this. So I'm in.
You're more into, I have to say, you've mentioned it more than once, though, that you like to see these epic battles. I'm not aligned with you on that. I don't want to say I disagree. That's a negative word. I'm not aligned that I can do without the battles. I like the political machinations better.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you. To be fair, in this show, I think that Game of Thrones / House of Dragon has done a better job of showing political intrigue and drama than any show that I can think of in recent times. I can't think of other shows that have done political, and this has nothing to do with the genre. It has nothing to do with the fantasy or anything. The other shows that come close, I would say, are something like Foundation, where we saw a little bit of political intrigue and machinations. The Old Man with Hulu, again, totally different.
House of Cards.
Sci-fi, fantasy. House of Cards, which, now has not aged well. But again, the first season, great, right? Political drama. I think they're probably on one Viserys-style hand, which is 3 fingers. I can think of shows that have equally good political machinations. But
well said.
But the reason I say that, the reason I make a point about the battle scenes is only because Game of Thrones had some spectacularly epic battle scenes. And even though this is not Game of Thrones, and everybody and their mother is going to keep reminding me of that, it's a natural comparison. You can't not compare it, no matter how hard you try. And so when you looked at the battle scenes you saw there versus what you're seeing here, I feel like they've said, okay, we have $200 million. I would rather spend $150 million of the budget on political than I would on action. Whereas I think Game of Thrones, it was much more, let's spend $100 million on drama and $100 million on action.
It's interesting you say that, and I'm going to use that as our segue to talking about Rings of Power, because Rings of Power to me is really, really stunning in terms of the visuals, in terms of production value, in terms of the details of the costumes and everything.
Unreal.
They're really spending their money on that. Whereas I feel like House of the Dragon is winning on story, plot, character. And it's doing, for a huge show, kind of the bare minimum it needs to do to have the right wardrobe.
Yeah, the feel.
Yeah, Rings of Power is like all about, I mean, they may have more costume designers than they do actors. They're really going all out on it, right?
I agree. But I'm with you fully.
Is the story good?
And I have to say, it's not doing anything for me. By the end of the second, if not the third at the latest, you really want to be hooked into what you are pretty sure is going to be the main plot point of an 8-episode series.
Hold on. Honestly, that's so good. You really need to say that again. Because I think for House of the Dragon, if you have to explain to somebody what it's about in one line, it's very clear, right? There's a dying king, and there's 3, maybe 4 people that in the future are going to be vying for that throne. What is the main thing happening in Rings of Power?
After 3 episodes, I cannot tell you that. Again, as someone who's read the books, we know what's going to happen in Lord of the Rings, which is 1,000 years from now. Forget about the future. Heck, forget about the past. What is happening in the next 5 episodes in the Rings of Power, and what is the central thesis or plot or antagonist? None of that has been shown to us. We don't even know what the bad guy looks like in this show.
So can I, as we've said before, I have not watched any of the other Lord of the Rings, but those three films, my summary is there is a ring, and they need to take it physically to a volcano, throw it in the volcano, and destroy it. Correct? That's the plot.
Correct.
There's a lot of drama, friendships, battles, so on and so forth. Right? But that is the plot. Here, I thought
that's the driving force through the movie.
Right? And Hobbit is how they actually find the ring in the first place. Right?
Well, yes. How the Bilbo finds the ring. Correct.
So I thought that Rings of Power is about how they make the ring.
And given what happened in episode 2, that's kind of what I thought too. I thought, hey, we're going to learn a little bit more about Celebrimbor. We're going to see all of this happening. Not a single one of them showed up on screen in episode 3. No Elrond, no dwarves, no Celebrimbor, no Sauron, no rings mentioned, nothing.
I mean, I have to say, I kind of like Numenor. That was a very good
beautiful
addition, but the Harfoots for me have to go. I'm getting, if this was a movie called The Stupid Harfoots or Nuri and the Harfoots and the Stranger, I would put this as a 1. I have really no interest in watching these bumbling Harfoots and their crazy little names and rituals.
You are 37.5% of the way through your season. Are you telling me that the Stranger at this point is still going to be the Stranger? You don't have to tell me exactly who he is, but can't you at least allude to who he's going to be? Make that plot line interesting. This is not interesting. He's obviously going to be important. We're all not idiots. We get that. At this pace, we'll find out in season 2 who he is, and that's not good enough.
So I agree and disagree. I agree, too slow. I agree it's not good enough. I disagree in the sense that I don't care. I'm not even.
Oh, well, yeah.
I think that's the bigger problem. I'm not even curious for who he is. I want
and I think that
fewer
comes down
Harfoots.
Yeah, and that comes down to because if he is, for example, there are rumors that he's Sauron. There are rumors that he's Gandalf. There are rumors that he's Saruman. All three of those names are very important people, and they're incredibly important to the story overall. Like, incredibly so. If that's the case, we should at least have an inkling by now. After 3 episodes, we still don't have an inkling. I loved that by the end of the first episode, we just know that there's a guy that fell from the sky. I thought that was great. Mm-hmm. But at the end of episode 2, you know what they could have done? Would have been kind of like an indication or something where they're saying this, for example, if he's Gandalf, okay, and I'm not saying he is, I don't know who he is. Let's go even more baseline. If he were Sauron, okay? If he's the main bad guy and he's Sauron, they don't have to tell us he's Sauron, but can you imagine if they kind of did a slow zoom in on Sauron's face and then they interjected that with a slow zoom in on Mount Doom or on a ring, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I think that's Sauron, because they're just kind of foreshadowing that. That's important. Right. And then all of a sudden, I'm in.
Yes.
Right now, you're absolutely right. I couldn't give 2 Harfoots as to who this guy.
I think there's really way too much Harfoot on this. I like I said, I really like the stuff in the introduction of Numenor, and I thought that was important just to expand the territory of Rings of Power, right? It added some backstory. Galadriel, learned something new. It kind of adds a little bit of urgency to her quest, right? But I think I would have preferred that they go back to Celebrimbor instead of all the Harfoots and the Stranger. For me, this was the episode where they should have fallen behind, and it's going to be Nuri and one other person and the Stranger, and at least we have a sense of what their mission is,
We've talked about this on other shows and offline as well. And I think it's very important that for shows like this, which is fantasy or whether it's sci-fi or fantasy, to establish the wider world and introduce all the characters. Yeah. And of course, for example, in For All Mankind, we harp on about the fact that some shows don't have enough characters on them. I think this show is doing itself a disservice by showing too many characters too fast. I have no problem with the idea of introducing Numenor and all these other characters, Isildur, etc., etc. I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. But for viewers like you who have never heard these names, who don't understand what their significance is, and I think that's going to be a majority of the people who they're targeting for this show. They're not going to be targeting the hardcore fans. I think you're doing a disservice by quickly introducing Elrond and then leaving him for an entire episode. Quickly introducing Celebrimbor and then entirely leaving him alone for an episode. I think you're doing yourself a disservice. In a show that's supposed to be over 5 seasons long and it's epic, you have time to introduce new people and new countries over time. Yeah. Focus on a story, focus on a plot, and keep that at least moving by focusing almost exclusively on Numenor for, let's say, 60 to 70% of this episode, and then another 30 to 40% on the Harfoots, and none on the rings, or none on what Celebrimbor wants to do, or even none with the dwarves. What are you doing? You're really shooting yourself in the foot here.
Do you have any idea what the ratings are, or the number of viewers of this show?
So
over the 3 episodes,
rumors were, I don't know about all 3 episodes, but I know that rumors were that the first episode, or I guess the first 2 episodes, because they released them together, were the most successful Amazon Prime viewership numbers ever. And they had 25 million users watch, which is huge. 25 million users for a brand new IP, for a first episode. That's massive. That could easily become 150 million users over the course of over the course of the next 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, that sounds good. I agree. I mean, I guess
if you look at it that way, with all due respect to HBO, they didn't release the numbers for terrestrial, but for HBO Max, they dropped 2.5 million users between episode 2 and 3.
Oh, for House of the Dragon.
For House of Dragon, the viewership fell by 2.5 million people. So, again, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I can only tell you what I prefer of the two shows right now. I much prefer House of the Dragon to Rings of Power.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I mean, I want to get more into Rings of Power. I mean, everything about it is really right up my alley. But I mean, I think that, again, I'm going to keep harping on the Harfoots. There's way too much of it. They're not cute to me. They're not endearing. I mean, I'm not sure where this appeal is or how important they are. And again, you mentioned it, like the stranger is still undefined. I really want to focus on the story, right? I'm not getting enough of Elrond, for example, so
I think that there's a little lopsided. Obviously, Galadriel is your main lead.
Yeah, that's true.
And I understand that. But Elrond is equally, if not more important, at least at this stage. Yeah. And, with all due respect to the Galadriel stands out there, she is very good. She is very important. But she alone is not the history of the Lord of the Rings.
Can you help me understand, where does Arondir fall into this?
Is he the elf that was captured?
Yes.
He is, I think, a narrative. I don't remember if he's in the books, or I don't know if he's in the story. Because again, I don't know the story as written.
Is he important? Should I care about him? Should I not care about him?
I think that regardless of whether he's in the books or mentioned or not, I think he's important because where they are in that storyline is they're clearly building Mordor. This is where Mount Doom is. They're clearly building the foundation for Sauron's land. So he's obviously
it's a geographic importance.
It's geographic importance, and I have a suspicion, and this is in no way substantiated. This is me purely making a leap of logic. I suspect that he and the other elves there that have been captured, along with the other humans that have been captured, will have their minds and blood corrupted and become the leader of the orcs.
Oh.
Don't hold me to this. If I remember correctly, most of the orc leaders were fallen men and elves that were corrupted by Sauron's forces. So I think because he's there, because he's building this place, because, he's kind of geographically in a place of huge significance for Middle Earth, my gut tells me that he's going to be the guy that at the end of the season or the end of the series, whatever is going to be converted into like an orc war chief or an orc leader that's going to be the main henchman of the antagonist.
I tell you, Pete, I really want to be into Rings of Power. I really want to be.
I do too.
And I'm trying to really get myself, more updated on canon and to try to understand. Sincerely, I am Amazon Prime. Maybe I should be using X-Ray more. Maybe that would be helping me. But I have to say the visuals, and I'm really not usually the person who's praising the visuals. I'm really more focused on story and comedy and being very clever and witty and intelligent. The visuals are really second to none. I mean, they even compared to House of the Dragon, the visuals are dramatically better. And House of the Dragons is the pinnacle, right? So Rings of Power has taken it to a new level. But just in terms of having a character who is likable, that you can rally behind, having a cause that you can be emotionally invested in, I feel like this is just like empty calories for me right now.
Yeah. That's actually a great way of looking at it. Actually, a fantastic way of looking at it. In terms of viewership, I'm enjoying it because for the wrong reasons. Yeah. Let's put it that way. It's a burst of endorphins to see all these great visual effects. But when you really deep dive and, when you sit down and really do an analysis like we do every week or like we do after watching any show, it's hard to justify. If you only have, and this is me being specious, but if you had 1 hour to watch one fantasy show once a week, I'm telling you, Lord of the Rings, at least at this stage, the Rings of Power is not where you should be spending your time.
That I think that's the right. I love it when we compliment each other, but I think that's the right way to look at it, right? If you're okay, Pete and Ethan, we've got a lot of disposable time. This is something that we're very passionate about. We watch everything, right?
Yeah.
If you're a father of two and you come home on a Friday night after working 80 hours a week, you put the kids to bed, your wife is in another room watching or reading a book, and you're like, hey, I've got an hour before I'm going to crash. What should I watch? Right? I've got it all. I've got subscribed to all. What should I watch in that 1 hour? Rings of Power is not that one show that you watch. It's not. It's House of the Dragon. It's something else. But if you've got 1 hour on a Friday night, that's me time. I don't think that it's Rings of Power.
I think you're going to be much more quickly invested in a show in House of the Dragon. And more importantly, as both these shows are prequels, because you're less likely to know all the characters and their backstories and the lore involved. You just have to gauge it by the fact that after watching 3 hours of the show, do you understand what the central premise is for the show? Yes or no? I can definitively say that for House of the Dragon. I cannot definitively say that for Lord of the Rings. I can make a guess for Rings of Power. That's it.
But I'd also say one other thing for Rings of Power. Who is the character that you have a hot take on in Rings of Power? Galadriel is one. And name.
And is that even really a hot take?
I agree.
Let's be clear. She is being presented as a force of nature whose only interest is in serving her kingdom.
Yeah.
That's it.
If me, you, my brother, my sister, right? 4 random people got together for lunch, you could have a proper discussion about House of the Dragon, Daemon, good guy, bad guy, Valerian, good or bad, right?
And we may agree, but there could certainly also be a situation where all 4 of us have 4 different takes on who's going to take over
and
the throne.
That's a discussion that you can have over lunch. Show me the discussion that we can have about Rings of Power. Galadriel, do we like her? Yeah, she's good. Give me a second character. Name any other character. I said Arondir. You said, who is that? Don't give me any of these Brandyfoot. What are the other Proud Fellow? Whatever these other like Harfoots are. That doesn't count. Celebrimbor. Okay, we saw him for
Celebrimbor.
5
Yeah, absolutely.
minutes. Elrond 5 minutes. There's no hot takes.
Durin. Exactly. There's nothing spicy about any one of them. All of them are being presented right now in relatively one-dimensional takes. I will say the guy who saved her on the ocean could potentially be interesting because he turned out he's the guy who basically
Halbrand
was the king of the Southlands, right? Who ran away. Yeah. That could be interesting. Yeah. And if you know the lore, Isildur is interesting. Yeah. But again, I don't expect the average viewer to know the lore. So again, as you rightly pointed out, it's really Galadriel at this point.
So I have to say,
after 3 episodes, it's really just...
So I know Isildur, right? But I have to say, the way that he was introduced was as a snotty kid who basically doesn't want to get a job, right? They didn't really, give him the backstory of like he's helping people or he's saving people or he's got this great thing and like he just doesn't want to follow his father's footsteps or like they just show him as this kind of like bratty guy who wants to take what are they called in the UK? A skip year? Leap year?
Oh, no, a gap
year. He just basically wants to take a gap year, right? Like, there's nothing really compelling about him yet. And there's only be something compelling, again, if you know the lore and you know how important he is in Lord of the Rings. You'd be like, oh, that's him as a kid. But he's not.
I think they've done a very ham-fisted way of showing him as being an irresponsible guy.
Yes.
Right? Because we know that... And again, this is a part of the lore. If you're not paying attention at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring in the first movie, you're not even going to remember that Isildur is the guy that basically let the human army down and let the elves down by keeping the ring for himself.
He is supposed to throw the ring into the volcano, and he decided he'll keep it for himself, right?
And he ends to keep it for himself, right? And that's and I'm pretty sure it's him, not his dad. But yes, in any case, I'm almost certain that's who he is. Yeah. And again, if you haven't watched the movies like you haven't, if you don't know the lore like most people haven't, that is, okay, who is this guy? And if you have seen the movies, if you know the lore, that's kind of like a ham-fisted way of showing, oh, well, he was always a punk. He was a punk at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, the movies, when we learned about him, and he's being a punk as a kid now, too. So why should he have ever been in that position?
I mean, look, we got 5 more years of this.
We definitely do. And again, and this is going to be a political nightmare, but for all those people who are hating on this show for the wrong reasons, get over yourself. If you don't like this show because of the reasons we've been talking about, which is the narrative structure is a little off, blah, 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 that's one thing. But if you don't like this show because there are black elves in there or other people of color in there, get over yourself. Yeah, this is not the right this is not the right place to focus your energies on why this show has problems.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, so the interesting thing about this thing is that Rings of Power comes out on Fridays. So it's fresh in our mind when we record this on Saturday.
Can I make a comment about that, by the way?
Please do. Yeah.
For everyone who's saying that Rings of Power is always not that great, blah, 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 I couldn't watch this show until Friday evening because the Amazon Prime servers were so overloaded in the UK or in Europe that it refused to load. Amazon Prime for Lord of the Rings, it just refused to load.
I had no such problem.
I kept getting prompts that said the show is taking longer to load than regular. Would you like to keep waiting or come back at a later time?
What time did you watch it your time, Friday night, UK time?
I don't know, maybe 6 o'clock in the evening, 5 o'clock in the evening, something like that.
I have to say, that's interesting. I probably watched it 9 p.m. Dubai time, which is about the same time as you.
Around the same time. Yeah.
I had no such problem.
I had tried all day. I thought that, you know what? I'll take it as a nice lunch break. While I'm eating lunch, I'll be able to watch the show. Wouldn't load. All day. And I kept checking up on it just to check. Just refused to load. So, again, I mean, that's, very much anecdotal evidence, but it's clearly doing something right for Amazon that the show is so popular that it's causing its servers stress.
Yeah, I'd like to see some real numbers. Interestingly, if you go to IMDb Pro, which is owned by Amazon, House of the Dragon is ranked number 1 and Rings of Power is number 2.
Oh, so it's climbed. Last week, remember, we made a joke about it. Rings of Power was at like number 6.
I mean, that seems about right. But I think that these two are going to be 1 and 2 probably for the next 5 years, right? Something dramatic would have to happen for either of them to drop down, I think.
Yeah. Or at least when they're on, right? I'm sure there will be like other flash in the pan shows that every once in a while, but yeah.
Like Stranger Things 5. When is Stranger Things 5
season 5
coming?
No idea.
At least a year, right?
I think they went a little Hollywood with the last season, but probably at least a year.
Anyway, join us next week. We have 2 more episode breakdowns, and it's really fun for me to be doing these side by side because I think it gives it...
Side by side, I think this is actually a really good way to do it for this show because there's so many points of commonality between House of Dragons and the Rings of Power.
Okay, Pete, as always, thank you for educating me. Thank you for your takes. And we see you next week, Films and Stuff.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.